Hello everyone, this is Showtime 112. By the end of 1940, it had become clear that the Italian campaign to neutralize Malta was a failure. The British Mediterranean stronghold continued to destabilize the Italian position in North Africa by disrupting their supply lines. This prompted the German High Command to conclude that direct intervention in the theater was necessary. The first German unit dispatched was the Luftwaffe's 10th Fliegerkorps, led by General Hans Ferdinand Geisler, an outfit primarily comprised of bombers specially trained for anti-shipping operations. Their first assignment was to close the Sicilian Narrows to British shipping and simultaneously prevent the Royal Navy from disrupting Axis convoys headed to North Africa. Initial preparations for deployment to Sicily began in December 1940. By the end of January, the Luftwaffe's force included 80 Ju-87R and B Stuka dive bombers, 38 Heinkel 111s, 92 Junkers Ju-88s, and 34 Bf-110s at their disposal. On the Axis side, the Regia Aeronautica, the Italian Air Force, also contributed, fielding SM-79 and Ju-87 bombers, with C.200 and CR-42 fighters providing cover. Malta's British defenders could muster only a few fighters. The legendary Gladiator biplane was still in use, with 4 examples remaining. But the backbone of the island's defenses were the 16 Hurricane Mark I fighters of 261 Squadron. These were occasionally supported by Ferry Fulmars, 2-seat fighters flown from HMS Illustrious, which was operating nearby. The British aircraft carrier was at the heart of Force A, one of several Royal Navy groups tasked with protecting convoys sailing between Alexandria, Malta, and Gibraltar under the codename Operation Excess. Accompanied by 2 battleships, several cruisers and destroyers, HMS Illustrious first escorted a convoy from Alexandria to Malta, arriving on January 8. The carrier then turned west to rendezvous with another convoy arriving from Gibraltar. The Axis forces were still in the midst of preparations and deployment. The Italians had moved some of their Ju-87 Stukas from 96th Independent Group to Comiso, Sicily, where they joined the advanced elements of Fliegerkorps 10. In November 1940, HMS Illustrious had launched Swordfish torpedo bombers, inflicting heavy damage on the Italian Navy in the famous Taranto raid. Both the Italians and the Germans now viewed the British carrier as their prime target, and Operation Excess presented an ideal opportunity to eliminate it. Malta experienced its first enemy air raid of 1941 on the morning of January 8th. The Regia Aeronautica sent Macchi C.200 fighters to strike Lucca airfield, while Ju-87s bombed Calafrana. The Macchi pilots claimed damage to 5 aircraft at Lucca, a figure partly corroborated by British records which admitted that 3 Wellington bombers were hit. On their way back, however, the Italian fighters were intercepted by 5 Hurricanes. Flight Lieutenant James McLachlan, a future ace, recalled climbing to 22,000 feet in a 4-plane formation and watching the leader, Pilot Officer Eric Taylor, suddenly dive steeply towards Grand Harbor. McLachlan followed, spotting some planes at 10,000 feet. Anti-aircraft fire was heavy around the enemy aircraft, and McLachlan found some of it distressingly close. Firing at the right-hand machine, he observed his shots finding their mark. The Italian pilot turned right, but McLachlan fired again during the turn, hitting the Macchi and causing the enemy pilot to bail out. Although, oddly, McLachlan kept following and shooting at the now abandoned aircraft. Pulling out of his dive, McLachlan then spotted a lone Macchi and chased it for nearly 25 miles as they tried to rejoin his squadron. After gradually closing the distance, he opened fire, sending the Italian fighter into a steep dive. He followed until he saw a large splash, at which point he broke off. Eric Taylor also claimed 2 enemy fighters, while another RAF pilot reported 1 damaged. Italian records from the day indicate the loss of 2 Macchis, one piloted by Ettore Zanandrea, who was killed, and the other by Luigi Armanino, who bailed out and was rescued from the sea. It's likely that Taylor and McLachlan each shot down one of the Macchis. As the convoy from Gibraltar closed in, Force A, with HMS Illustrious at its core, sailed northwest of Malta under Admiral Cunningham's command. Despite suggestions from his subordinates that the carrier should remain 20 to 30 miles south of the main fleet, where it could still protect the incoming convoy at reduced risk from airstrikes, Cunningham rejected this advice. He insisted that Illustrious take position within the formation, flanked by the battleships Warspite and Valiant, believing that the presence of the aircraft carrier would boost morale among the escorts and merchantmen alike. Confidence was likely high after the recent triumph at Taranto. The British operation was carefully planned, but the Germans and Italians were even better prepared. On January 10, 1941, Luftwaffe's 10th Fliegerkorps was able to muster no fewer than 96 bombers to attack Force A, including 54 Junkers 87 R and B models from Stukageschwader 1 and 2, backed by 32 Heinkel 111s from Kampfgeschwader 26. The fighter contingent was still arriving, but 24 Bf-110s were operational and ready. Illustrious was equipped with a state-of-the-art radar system, capable of detecting aircraft at distances up to 90 miles, at altitude of 20,000 feet. Indeed, radar contacts began early on the morning of January 10th. The carrier's fighter force, consisting of 12 operational Fairey Fulmars, was kept busy, intercepting Italian reconnaissance planes shadowing the fleet. One was claimed shot down at 9:30 a.m. and another at 11:20. At 12:20, the radar picked up unidentified aircraft just 6 miles from the fleet. This turned out to be 2 low-flying Savoia Marchetti SM-79s carrying torpedoes, dispatched as a decoy to draw Fulmars down to sea level. The Royal Navy fighters dove from 14,000 feet but failed to intercept the bombers before they released their torpedoes. Illustrious managed to evade, and both torpedoes missed. The Fulmars then chased the SM-79s, damaging at least one before running out of ammunition. But at 12:25, British radar detected a much larger contact, roughly 28 miles to the north. The Fulmars, positioned low and short on ammo, had to race for altitude to intercept the incoming formations: 43 Stukas, 18 Heinkel 111s, and 10 Bf-110s as escort. On board Illustrious, 4 Fulmars were readied for launch, with more being wheeled out onto the flight deck. The carrier needed to turn into the wind quickly, but permission had to be requested from the commander-in-chief aboard HMS Valiant. It took 4 minutes for a response, precious time lost as the German bombers approached within visual range. Fulmars and even some Swordfish biplanes scrambled just as the first bombs began to fall. The Stukas continually shifted speed and altitude, splitting into smaller groups to evade anti-aircraft fire. They carried various bomb types. The first wave dropped bombs with contact fuses meant to eliminate anti-aircraft gun crews, while others carried larger 500-kilogram bombs with delay fuses. Some sources also suggest 1,000-kilogram bombs were in use. 10 Stukas targeted the battleships, possibly to divert defensive fire. Attacks came from several directions at altitudes of about 12,000 feet, with dive angles between 60 and 80 degrees. Illustrious was struck by 6 bombs in the opening attack, including a 1,000-kilogram bomb that penetrated her deck armor. Several near misses caused further destruction and casualties. One bomb hit the elevator as it was lowering a Fulmar that had failed to start, causing significant casualties in the hangar and starting a major fire. Hits at the stern caused rudder failure, but the crew managed to set it in the neutral position and steered with the engines. The main attack lasted just 7 minutes. The British fleet reported 2 Stukas shot down by anti-aircraft fire, while Fulmar pilots claimed another 4. However, 10 Fliegerkorps reported losing only 3 Stukas in all sorties that day. Heavily damaged, HMS Illustrious made course for Malta, but further attacks followed. At 4 p.m., radar detected another incoming raid. this time 15 Italian Ju-87s from the 237th Squadron. The first wave produced several near misses, but the second attack, coming in from starboard, scored a direct hit on the aft lift, compounding the damage. Subsequent attacks missed or were aborted, including one just 5 miles from Valletta. Illustrious finally limped into harbor at 9 p.m., still burning fiercely. The carrier had lost 126 crew members, with 91 wounded, and her ordeal was far from over. Her location was now well known to the Luftwaffe. Let us know if you would like to see what happened next to HMS Illustrious and the besieged island of Malta in general. As always, keep watching Showtime 112.